It's not, hey, hug your wife and kids right when you walk in the door. It's go in the garage, take everything off, put in the washing machine, bypass your family, go get a shower, make sure everything's decon, and then go see your family. Or if you've been exposed, give it a day or two. Just, you know, it's,
well, I mean, and then you could really, like your personal life, you couldn't go out and do anything. You could go to a movie, you could go have a meal with friends or whatever you want to do.
Your normal de-stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just had to bottle everything up. There was no way to decompress. You just had to deal with it and keep pushing.
no vacation at all last year.
Yeah, very isolating. It was tough.
Probably the biggest part of it is not only the physical part of what COVID did to us, but the psychological aspect of COVID, where you come in, you don't know if you're going to be able to work the next week or get that paycheck. That was a big one for us. And then going into these people's homes, you really don't know what we were getting into, or what we were going to take away from their homes and bring to their own families.
Over half our staff was out with COVID. So if you weren't out with COVID, you were really having to try to make up the difference just to cover shifts.
Yeah, man, we're 3 days straight on the clock because, half our shift was out with COVID, half the entire staff was out with COVID, and then every call was a COVID call.
I know our acuity level in the emergency room was really high. Patients were really sick. We saw a lot of co-workers, some neighbors and stuff literally die. They would come through, they'd either, if they got intubated, that chance was kind of slim. But we worked hard, worked extra days just to cover for other staff members. Never thought we'd still be wearing masks after over a year.
Tried to double team every patient, have somebody on standby to bring us things so we didn't have to leave the room multiple times.
Right.
And
it was time consuming.
very time consuming.
Especially with one potential COVID patient in a room. You might spend 30, 45 minutes there just one time, and then your other patients are just, waiting. Hopefully somebody's taking up the slack in the ER.
And then a lot of times, we didn't find out about it until, hours after the fact, and all of us have already been exposed, and you guys.
Right.
Yeah,
we get people and we don't know what we're walking into, but like y'all are in their actual house where their germs are.
They've usually
behind.
at least been kind of screened when they make it to y'all. We walk into, COVID ground zero possibly.
We all, had compassion for each other because you didn't know. You're at risk the whole time. You didn't know who had COVID. People would come in asymptomatic and end up with COVID, and you've been in the room and right in their face, and then like you were saying, you had to stay away from your immediate family because you didn't want to take it home to them, and you didn't know if you were going to be asymptomatic and then give a family member COVID, and then you'll be the culprit of their death.
And then you had the other stressor was the other family members. They couldn't come back, and you had to make several phone calls outside to them, tell them what's going on. And then, God forbid they went to MICU, whatever, and then they didn't really get to see any family, so that was hard.
We felt that on the transfer side because nobody could ride with us. And it's real stressful for a parent if you're transferring a kid to a honor that's COVID positive and having all these symptoms, and the parent can't ride with them.
Where'd y'all go? As far as like Arkansas, Kentucky?
We went everywhere.
Because there was no beds anywhere.
Atlanta, Louisville, Kentucky,
And when you're talking about that, those people go months without family because their family can't get that far, and with everything being shut down with COVID,
it got to be pretty comical there towards the end. Like, hey, you guys want to go to St. Louis today? What about Fort Lauderdale?
When Nashville and Birmingham become short trips, that's when you're stressing the system at that point.
Yeah.
Right, especially when you can't move patients in the emergency room and you're having to hold, and then they're stacking out front, and then y'all guys are bringing them in the back doors. It's very stressful.
Well, and you didn't know when you came into work and clocked in that morning, you didn't know exactly what the standard was because the CDC was constantly evolving here.
Well, and then you had shortages too. You're having to reuse masks, which we'd never been taught to do before. So everybody had the same mask for weeks.
I don't think a shortage of PPEs in my career
I've never seen
been
that.
heard of until this.
You pretty much seen where we're all human beings, and what we do best is adapt and overcome, and that's what
Overall, I think we all got a little bit closer to it because you were stuck with these people because we're all exposed together. So those are the only people you could really be around.
Yep. And then we had other crew members step up. If we made a call and our truck was contaminated with a COVID patient, they would step up and clean the truck while we were doing our paperwork and doing our post-patient stuff, restocking and whatnot. That way we were ready quicker rather than having to divert that time to report the deconning and whatnot. So we all kind of stepped up and became more team players than we originally were. Teamwork, I mean, everybody stepped up. Not to just brag on my shift, but Woody and Jeremy both definitely stepped up a whole lot. Just went out of their way to make sure that everyone else was taken care of and able to get their job done, even if it meant sacrifices on their behalf.
I mean, you worked harder. I mean, you were exhausted time the end of the shift. I mean, you're very exhausted. So,
My takeaway would just be like I said, I mean, you care about your coworkers, but you really learn to care about your coworkers because that's all you had. All you had was each other to decompress, to get through it, to figure this out. You basically lived together for the
much.
last year.
That's pretty, we, in EMS, we basically live with each other every third day anyway, but it was pretty much 7 days a week then.
You learn what you really can do, like mentally, physically, just what your body and your mind can do when you really put it to it. And I think that's the biggest part of it, is just realizing that we can do more than what we normally could. And
Yeah, I think in the next 5 years we're gonna look back and I'll be like, hey man, you remember when we went through that pandemic?
We don't look crazy.
Yes.
We're gonna be like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. It's the dark ages.
Dark, very dark.
Thankfully, we didn't have a lot of COVID cases with ER workers. We were very fortunate.